In the distant future, a group of aliens known as the Xantharians visited Earth. They were curious beings with green skin, large eyes, and tentacles that extended gracefully from their sides. The Xantharians traveled through galaxies, seeking knowledge and culture from different planets. They had heard much about humans but believed them to be simple creatures who could do no harm. When they landed in a remote area of Earth, they marveled at the landscape. They saw tall trees, bright flowers, and heard the chirping of birds. The Xantharians were delighted by the beauty of the planet and its inhabitants. They decided to approach a small human village to learn more. The village was bustling with activity. Children played in the streets, and adults worked in gardens or shops. The Xantharians chose a group of children as their first contacts. The alien beings stepped forward, attempting to communicate with the children. They made strange sounds, but the children giggled and ran away, thinking it was a game. A well-known Marine, Sergeant Mark Thompson, happened to be in the village that day. Mark had spent years working with the local community and was known for his strong sense of duty and kindness. He noticed the aliens trying to speak to the children and walked over to help. "Hello there," Mark said, speaking clearly and slowly. He was surprised to see the aliens but kept his composure. "I can help you communicate. You come from another world?" The Xantharians nodded, their large eyes shining with excitement. They were eager to learn more about Earth and its people. Mark smiled at their enthusiasm and introduced himself. "I'm Sergeant Mark Thompson. I can help you understand humans. But there are some things you need to know about us that might surprise you." The Xantharians tilted their heads in curiosity. They had perceived humans as friendly and harmless. Mark took a deep breath and continued. "Let's start with the good things. Humans have created beautiful art, music, and stories. We care for one another, and we have family bonds that are strong. But we also have a dark side." The Xantharians looked puzzled. "Dark side? What does that mean?" one of them asked, his tentacles swirling in the air. Mark thought for a moment, trying to find the right words. "Sometimes, humans hurt each other. We fight wars, and in these wars, some people do terrible things. These actions are called war crimes, and they harm not only our enemies but sometimes innocent people too." The Xantharians were shocked. They had come to Earth believing in the inherent goodness of humans. "Why do you do this?" they inquired, their voices laced with concern. Mark sighed, knowing this was a complicated topic. Many times, people feel they have no choice. They might feel threatened or believe they are protecting their home. But the reality is that war brings pain, suffering, and loss. It is never a reason to do terrible things. As Mac explained, he could see the Xantharians processing this information. Their large eyes widened in disbelief. One of them, Zarok, spoke up, "But that doesn't make sense. Why not resolve differences with peace? Why choose war?" Mark admired their innocence. "It's not easy to change how people think. Many of us are taught to fight rather than talk. But there are others who work hard for peace. We have people and organizations that try to stop wars, heal wounds, and promote understanding." The Xantharians shared worried looks among themselves. They had seen many civilizations, but none that expressed such complexity of emotion. They wished for a world where all beings could live in harmony. "It seems there is both light and darkness in your kind," Zarok said thoughtfully. Mark nodded. "Yes, and the battle between them exists in each person. Many would choose peace, if given a chance." Feeling a connection with the aliens, Mark invited them to stay in the village for a while. He thought it might be beneficial for them to experience human life beyond the conflicts. The Xantharians accepted the invitation and began to explore the village. For days, the Xantharians learned about human culture. They participated in festivals, tried local foods, and watched as the villagers shared stories under the stars. They saw children laughing and playing, friendships blossoming, and communities helping each other. However, the dark parts of human nature still lingered. One evening, the Xantharians heard raised voices coming from a nearby house. Curious, they approached and found a family arguing about money and responsibilities. The tension was palpable, and it made them uncomfortable. "That is a small fight," Mark explained. "It is part of being human. We all have our disagreements, and sometimes they escalate. These disagreements could lead to something worse," Zorik said, his tentacles twitching anxiously. "Is this what you mean by darkness?" "Yes," Mark replied gently. "But people can also learn to resolve their differences peacefully." As time passed, the Xantharians began to understand the complexity of human emotions and behavior. They watched Mark and the villagers work together, discussing issues, finding solutions, and supporting each other. It gave them hope. Before leaving Earth, the Xantharians had a final meeting with Mark. "What can we take back to our home?" Zorik asked. "What should we tell our people about humans?" Mark smiled, knowing this was a pivotal moment. "Tell them that humans are capable of great love and creativity, but also of conflict. The key is to focus on the good and strive to overcome the darkness within ourselves. We have much to learn from each other." The Xantharians nodded, understanding the weight of their mission. They would share the stories of their experience and advocate for peace in their own world. As they prepared to depart, the villagers gathered to say goodbye. The Xantharians climbed aboard their ship, waving to the children who had come to love them. Mark stood back, feeling a mix of sadness and pride. He knew that the aliens would carry a piece of humanity with them, a reminder that even in darkness, there is always a chance for light. As the spaceship took off, the Xantharians looked down at Earth, a planet filled with both struggle and beauty. They were determined to learn from humans, instilling a sense of hope in the hearts of their own people. From then on, they would share a story not just of humans as they saw them but of a complex kinship that could lead to a future of understanding and peace among galaxies. The Zargonians had been observing Earth for centuries. Their advanced technology allowed them to witness human history unfold, from ancient civilizations to the space age. They found humans fascinating, if somewhat chaotic. Their wars, while destructive, seemed small-scale compared to the galactic conflicts the Zargonians were familiar with. They viewed humanity as essentially harmless, a species too preoccupied with its own squabbles to pose a real threat. Their ambassador, Xyler, a being of shimmering amethyst skin and 3 delicate antennae, held this view firmly. He had spent years studying human culture, learning their languages and absorbing their history. He'd seen their art, their music, their literature. He'd even watched a few reruns of old sitcoms, finding the humor peculiar. But fundamentally, he believed humans were fundamentally peaceful. His team agreed. Zorgan, a hulking figure with skin like polished granite, chuckled at the idea of humans as a threat. "They fight amongst themselves, yes, but their weaponry is primitive. Their strategies, laughable." Kira, a slender Zargonian with eyes like molten gold, added, "Their capacity for destruction is limited. Their conflicts are contained to their own planet. They pose no interstellar threat." Their initial contact mission went smoothly. They landed in a remote area of the Australian outback, selecting a location with minimal human activity. They established a communication link and waited. The humans who eventually encountered them were a group of scientists, cautiously optimistic. The Zargonians, in turn, were curious and friendly. Xyler, the lead ambassador, explained their peaceful intentions. The scientists, after some initial apprehension, accepted this. They shared knowledge, exchanging information about their respective cultures and scientific discoveries. Days turned into weeks. The Zargonians were amazed by human resilience, their ingenuity, and their surprisingly deep understanding of certain scientific concepts. They were intrigued by human art and music. They even learned to appreciate the absurdity of some of their sitcoms. Their initial assessment of humanity as harmless seemed increasingly valid. Then, the Marines arrived. A small detachment, alerted by the unusual activity near the contact site. Led by Sergeant Miller, a grizzled veteran with a weary look in his eyes and a cynical outlook that went hand in hand with his 20 years of service, the unit was sent to investigate. Miller didn't believe in aliens. He thought the whole thing was a hoax, a particularly elaborate military exercise gone wrong. His cynicism was a protective shield, forged in the fires of countless deployments. He'd seen too much. He'd seen things that would haunt his dreams long after he'd hung up his boots. He knew humanity's capacity for darkness, a knowledge far more profound than the scientists or the Zargonians ever would. The initial encounter was tense. The Zargonians, initially apprehensive, quickly realized that these beings were different. These weren't the curious scientists they had come to know. These were soldiers, radiating an aura of cold, calculated violence. Sergeant Miller, initially skeptical, finally accepted the reality of the situation. An alien species, peaceful and curious, had made contact. And he found himself surprisingly sympathetic to their plight. But his training still dictated his actions. He questioned them thoroughly, and then, the conversation took a turn. The conversation started with simple pleasantries. But during a lull in the tense communication, one of the Zargonians, Zorgan, mentioned something about the human wars. He cited several examples, highlighting what he considered to be particularly brutal conflicts. Miller listened patiently, then politely corrected him. Those weren't just wars, Miller said quietly, his voice rough but firm. Those were atrocities. War crimes. The word hung in the air, alien to the Zargonians. Zyler asked for a definition. Miller explained. He spoke of massacres, of deliberate targeting of civilians, of torture, of the systematic extermination of entire populations. He spoke of things done in the name of war, acts so vile and inhumane they defied logic and compassion. The Zargonians were stunned into silence. The information was processed slowly, and the ramifications hit them with a crushing impact. They'd witnessed the wars, of course, but never truly understood the depth of human cruelty. They dismissed it as mere barbarity, lacking the nuances and the horrific specific details. Miller provided those specific details. He painted a vivid picture, not of grand battles but of individual suffering, of the systematic dehumanization and the casual cruelty. He described the scorched earth tactics and the systematic starvation and slaughter of innocents. He detailed the use of inhumane weapons and the systematic rape and murder of the defeated. The initial shock gave way to horror. Zyler's amethyst skin paled slightly. Zorgan's granite-like features seemed to crack, revealing a flicker of fear in his eyes. Kira's golden eyes widened, filled with an unsettling mixture of disbelief and revulsion. They had judged a species based on their large-scale wars, ignoring the capacity for unspeakable evil on a smaller scale. Miller's explanation shifted their perception drastically. The humans, they realized, were not just capable of violence, they were capable of unimaginable horrors. They were a species that could inflict pain and suffering on a scale that even the Zargonians, with their own history of galactic conflict, could barely comprehend. The wars were but a small part of the story, the war crimes were the real truth. The initial assessment of humans as harmless evaporated. The Zargonians, now realizing the full potential for human cruelty, began to reassess their position. The aliens who had once considered humans as an interesting but insignificant species, were now filled with a newfound respect, a respect tinged with a chilling and dreadful awe. They had underestimated humanity, they'd vastly underestimated its capacity for darkness. The peaceful, curious scientists suddenly seemed less innocent, and far more terrifying. Their naivete had been a chilling camouflage for something far darker. The Zargonians now understood. The humans were not harmless. They were far, far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The Marines, with their harsh truths and weary eyes, had given them a glimpse into the abyss, and they knew they had to act accordingly. The first contact mission was over, and a new era had begun. In a small town named Willow Creek, life was simple. People planted gardens, raised families, and looked after each other. Little did they know, something extraordinary was about to happen. In the night sky, far beyond the stars, a spaceship soared. A group of aliens from the planet Zyxen was on a mission to study Earth. The leader of the alien crew was named Zorak. He was tall and green, with 4 eyes that sparkled with curiosity. His team included 2 other aliens, Nira, a clever inventor, and Trell, a cautious observer. They had traveled light years to reach Earth. As they approached the blue planet, Zorak announced, "We shall land and learn about these humans. They must be weak and harmless." The spaceship touched down in a quiet part of the town, hidden behind a thicket of trees. The aliens stepped out, amazed by their surroundings. Flowers bloomed brightly, and the air was sweet. They began to explore, staying hidden from the townspeople. In Willow Creek, a young girl named Lily was playing in her backyard. She was 8 years old, with long brown hair and a bright smile. She loved to discover new things. When she noticed a strange light in the sky, her curiosity took over. She raced to the edge of the trees, peeking through the branches. What she saw made her gasp. Zorak, Nira, and Trell were examining a butterfly. "What is this creature?" Trell asked, touching the delicate wings. "It is beautiful and fragile." Nira giggled, "Like humans, I think." Lily watched in awe, and her heart raced with excitement. Taking a deep breath, Lily stepped out from behind the trees. "Hello," she called out. The aliens turned in surprise. Zorak raised an eyebrow. "Did the human just speak?" he asked. Lily smiled wide. "I'm Lily. Who are you?" The aliens exchanged glances, unsure of how to respond. "We are Zyxens," Zorak said cautiously. "We came to learn about your kind." Lily's eyes sparkled. "You mean humans? I can show you around." The aliens looked at each other and decided to follow her. As they walked through the town, Lily pointed out different things. She showed them her school, the bakery where delicious bread was made, and the park where children played. The Zyxens observed everything with fascination. "Humans have so many interesting things," Nira noted, fiddling with her device to record their observations. "They make art and music. They create life." Trell nodded. "But they seem fragile, easily hurt." As the day continued, Lily invited the Zyxens to her house for lunch. Her mom, Mrs. Thompson, was cooking spaghetti. "Hello, dear. Who are your friends?" she asked, noticing the 3 aliens standing shyly at the door. Lily beamed. "They're Zyxens. Can they stay for lunch?" Mrs. Thompson was taken aback, but she loved her daughter's curiosity. "Of course," she said, welcoming the aliens inside. The Zyxens were nervous, but soon, they tasted the spaghetti. It was strange but delicious. Zorak's 4 eyes widened. Humans are skilled in food making. After lunch, Mrs. Thompson suggested they play outside. The Zyxens joined in, trying their best to understand the human games. They struggled at first, falling over while trying to play tag. Lily laughed, helping them up. "It's all part of the fun." But just as they were having a great time, a group of older kids appeared. Among them was Jacob, a big boy who liked to seem tough. He spotted Lily and the Zyxens. "What are those weird things?" Jacob sneered, pointing. The other kids laughed. Lily stood tall. "They're my friends. They're aliens from another planet." The kids stopped laughing and looked curious but also suspicious. Jacob stepped forward. Aliens. Prove it. He challenged. Zorak, trying to show their harmlessness, stepped forward. We come in peace, he declared. But Jacob didn't care about peace. He started mocking the Zyxans. Look at their funny eyes. He jeered, pushing Trell lightly. Zorak felt a surge of protectiveness. He had thought humans were harmless, yet here was one acting dangerously. Stop. He said, a little louder. We mean you no harm. Jacob laughed again, not understanding. What are you even saying? Lily felt sad. She wished everyone could see how friendly and kind the Zyxans were. In a burst of courage, she said, let's show them how we can have fun together. She suggested a game of hide and seek, inviting everyone, including Jacob. At first, Jacob was reluctant but then agreed, thinking it would be an easy win. He began counting while everyone else scattered. Trell hid behind a large tree. Zorak climbed up to a low branch to blend in. Nira squeezed into a bush, her green skin blending with the leaves. But when Jacob searched for them, he stumbled upon Trell. Got you! Jacob shouted, but his face transformed to surprise as he took a good look at the alien. Trell looked frightened but stood firm. Jacob's bravado faded when he saw that Trell was scared but not aggressive. As they continued to play, something amazing happened. The laughter of the kids began to drown out the fears. Lily shouted encouragements, and as Jacob interacted with the Zyxans, he saw that they were just as curious and fun-loving as any of them. By the end of the day, Jacob had learned those aliens weren't so different from them after all. The sun began to set, casting a warm glow over Willow Creek. Zorak looked at everyone, a smile forming on his face. Perhaps humans are not as harmless as I first thought, he mused. When it was time for the Zyxans to leave, they said their goodbyes. You have shown us kindness and fun, Nira said, her eyes sparkling with happiness. Lily hugged each of them tightly. Come back soon. There's more to show. As the spaceship soared back into the night sky, Zorak turned to his friends. Humans may seem fragile, but they possess the strength of connection and friendship. We shall return to learn more about them. And back in Willow Creek, someone looked into the stars that night, feeling a tiny bit more connected to the universe. Because sometimes, understanding begins when you take a chance on friendship. The Zargonians had been observing Earth for centuries. From their vantage point light years away, humans seemed insignificant. Tiny, fragile creatures, preoccupied with their own small squabbles. Commander Xyler, a seasoned Zargonian explorer with iridescent purple skin and 3 eyes, found them utterly harmless. His report, titled Earth, a case study in benign irrelevance, was lauded by the Zargonian High Council. Their weapons are primitive, Xyler stated in his report, showcasing images of early 20th century firearms. Their technological advancements are minimal compared to our own. They pose no threat. The council agreed. Earth was deemed a safe place for a research expedition, a low-risk, high-reward opportunity to expand Zargonian knowledge of lesser-evolved species. The expedition team consisted of Xyler, the ever-optimistic scientist Dr. Zorp with his bright orange skin and enthusiasm for collecting strange Earth rocks, and the cautious engineer, Krill, whose gray skin reflected his pessimistic nature. They arrived in a disguised spacecraft, landing in a remote area of the Amazon rainforest. Their mission was simple: observe, collect data, and return. Their initial observations reinforced Xyler's assessment. The humans they observed lived in small tribes, seemingly content with their simple lives. They engaged in rituals and ceremonies that seemed both curious and utterly harmless. Dr. Zorp spent hours collecting samples of unusual plants and insects, his 3-fingered hands carefully labeling each specimen. Krill, meanwhile, remained perpetually on edge, his anxieties only slightly eased by the ship's advanced security systems. Days turned into weeks. The Zargonians learned about the human social structures, their communication methods, and their beliefs. They discovered a rich tapestry of cultures and traditions, all vastly different from their own. They even managed to observe a human wedding ceremony, a colorful spectacle that left Dr. Zorp in awe. One day, while exploring a nearby village, Dr. Zorp stumbled upon a peculiar object, a small, metallic box with strange symbols etched into its surface. Intrigued, he brought it back to the spacecraft. Krill, ever cautious, examined the box with his advanced scanning technology. The results were unexpected. The box emitted a faint energy signal. A signal that was not naturally occurring. It was a communication device, a rudimentary form of technology, but a communication device nonetheless. As Krill analyzed the signal, a pattern emerged. It was a message to them. The message was simple: "We see you." The initial reaction was confusion. How could the humans, with their primitive technology, detect their presence? Then fear. If they had detected the Zargonians' arrival, they must have known about their advanced technology. Zyler's assessment, the very foundation of their mission, was shattered. Krill's analysis continued. The message wasn't simply a detection of their ship. It was a call. A response. The humans, seemingly harmless, were responding to the Zargonians' presence. And the response was not peaceful. It was a carefully crafted deception. The signal analysis revealed a hidden network of advanced technology, cloaked within the seemingly primitive surface of human civilization. It was a global network, a sophisticated defense system that was just activating. The humans weren't just observing them, they were preparing for them. The message, "We see you," wasn't a greeting. It was a warning. Panic seized the Zargonians. The notion that humans were harmless was ludicrously wrong. They were not primitive, they were cunning, patient, and far more advanced than anyone had imagined. Their technology was different, less showy, but more integrated and effective. The Zargonians had underestimated them completely. Zyler, Dr. Zorp, and Krill prepared for departure. They activated the spacecraft's emergency systems, launching into the atmosphere as the first wave of a sophisticated counterattack began to engulf the Amazon rainforest, a response to their discovery of the humans' hidden capabilities. They escaped, but they never forgot the humbling lesson they learned on Earth: never underestimate an opponent, no matter how harmless they may seem. The seemingly harmless humans were far from harmless and were masters of patience and deception. The Zargonians' report on Earth was rewritten, replaced by a chilling new assessment: Earth, high risk, unknown potential.